This video was made possible by EA Game Changers. Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld again, and well, the Battlefield 5 beta is finally over and social media is pretty much blowing up at the moment with different opinions. And one thing a lot of YouTubers are doing right now is making videos on what they want to see changed in the game, and so I guess this is my one of those. The thing is though, I really don't have that many issues with the game as it is at the moment. So what I thought I'd do instead is ask you guys what you want to see changed. And so that's what we're going to take a look at in this video. I'm going to read through some of the best replies you gave me and let you know what I think. Okay, so to kick off, Josh says, take away the resupply stations completely, and it would be the best game ever. People will finally learn how important it is to spam around health and ammo. And I think that's, there's something to that point. I don't necessarily think that you should take away all the resupply stations, but I do think maybe they should be, limited to just on the objectives themselves. And you're right, Josh, people will finally learn what it means to actually be a medic or a support player. Okay, so Jono Witz says, controversial and probably moved away from for a reason, but start with rifles, in brackets, not assault rifles, and have faction-specific weapons. Okay, so I probably would agree with the fact that it is definitely controversial to say something like that. Obviously, DICE aren't gonna make every single character start with a bolt-action rifle, because that just wouldn't be Battlefield. That's one of the issues with it being in a World War II theme. But I am fully 100% behind you when it comes to faction-specific weapons. That's something I've actually suggested personally to DICE devs, and something I think they were considering, but something I think they probably passed over for this particular game. Okay, so Andrew Hughes says, squads should have 5 players instead of 4, at least for regular conquest mode. And I mean, sure, that's something that's definitely been done in previous Battlefield games, and I think it probably could work in this game as well. But I think probably it just comes down to the fact that there is 4 main classes. I think they want, ideally a squad to be full of 1 of each particular class. And not just that, 4 goes a lot better into 64 than 5 does. So coming in next, T-Man Well says, the stupid medic system died so many times doing a revive instead of the instant one in BF1. Not a fan of the time to kill either. No time to react and retaliate. And honestly, no offense, but, I probably couldn't disagree more with this one. And I know it's a point that a lot of people have been bringing up in the community. Obviously, the time to kill is something that people are really worried about. And obviously, I can understand why you're pretty worried about long revives as well. But honestly, I'm a fan of realism in shooter games. And personally, I think the fact that the time to kill is a lot lower means that it's more sort of a skill-based thing when it comes to getting a kill rather than, whether you've got a good weapon or not. Whoever basically gets the initiative and gets off the first shot generally is going to have a huge advantage, and I'm pretty cool with that because I play a lot of games like Insurgency. As for the revives, well, I think we all sort of saw how bad that could be in BF3 when it came to instant revives. It allows for a lot of revive spamming, I should say. And yeah, I just don't think that's necessarily a good thing for the game to, be jabbing people and have them instantly stand up again with full health. So coming in next, Sam Birdo says, ammo attrition turns the game into a tedious fetch quest. Extreme contrast gamma is hard on the eyes, makes it hard to spot. And he also says combatants should look more like their respective factions. And I mean, obviously, ammo attrition is something that's pretty controversial right now. I personally think ammo attrition is cool. I think it sort of makes you think about what you're doing a little bit harder. But I can understand if you're one of those people out there who believe that you should have all the ammo in the world when you first spawn in. As for the second point, extreme contrast gamma, well, I probably agree with that as well. It doesn't really affect me as much. I don't really notice that sort of thing. But I have heard a lot of people talk about it, and that just sort of seems like something that, DICE will eventually address later on down the track anyway. And number 3, combatants should look more like their respective factions. I think they kind of look pretty authentic at the moment. I'm not sure exactly what you mean about that. Maybe you might want to leave a comment and let me know what you think, and I'll give you some more feedback down below. All right, so Tilly says, honestly, a lot of the changes I would have wanted are already being changed. If anything, another round of ammo to spawn in would be great. I think vehicles in general need a few small tweaks, otherwise I'm very happy. And you know what, I completely agree. I'm pretty happy with the game as it is so far. I'm probably one of the few people that don't have many issues with it. But yes, I can understand why you might want... I think what you're trying to say is you want another mag. And yeah, like I was saying, I think I can understand why you would want another mag when you spawn in. Maybe that's what they've just got to do to appease everybody. They've just got to give everyone that extra mag when you spawn in, and then later on, you have to kind of go looking for ammo at various points or whatever. All right, coming up next is probably one of the best Twitter handles I've ever seen. Elon Musk says, the severity of the attrition system, the weapon upgrade system, the enemy visibility. So obviously we've talked about the attrition system. Some people like it, some people don't. The weapon upgrade system is also pretty controversial at the moment. If you haven't already seen it, basically they've replaced the attachment system with a skill tree. We'll talk about that in just a sec. And the other point that he makes is the enemy visibility. So that's probably got to do with the spot mechanic, which we're probably going to talk about in some of the other comments later on. But just to go quickly back to the weapon upgrade system, well, I mean, think about it. This is a World War II themed game. A lot of those attachments that you would have had in Battlefield 4 don't really make sense in this theme. So I think basically what the skill trees are is just a way to give you a lot of customization options without breaking the authenticity fourth wall too much. Now, coming up next, Ollie says he changed the higher time to kill. It's far too quick and you can't react and turn around and defend yourself like you could in BF4. So we've covered that one already, but just to reiterate, I don't personally have anything wrong with the time to kill. And we'll talk about the spot mechanic a little bit later on, but I think getting rid of the spot mechanic actually means that you kind of do live a little bit longer than you previously would have in previous Battlefield games. So I can understand that you do want to, you know, whip around and shoot someone if you feel some bullets incoming, but at the end of the day, it's less authentic, and I'm not necessarily opposed to a higher time to kill. All right, so Joe has sent in quite a big tweet with a bunch of different points, but we're just going to address some of the ones that, firstly, we're not going to talk about later on, ones that we haven't already talked about, and ones that I think are relevant to the conversation. So the first one is he'd like it to run or look at least as good as BF1 on the original Xbox One. And the short answer is, obviously, you know, this is the new game. It's going to have updated graphics and it's not going to run as good as you probably would want it to run. If you're really worried about it, there is the Xbox One X that you can buy. But if you can't afford that, well, unfortunately, there's not much you can do about it, you know. There's a progress to how games work. And, you know, whether we like it or not, DICE are always going to try and strive to make better games with each different iteration in the series. He also says he wants bleeding out to be removed and to remove the 10-second delay after respawn, I think he's trying to say. And I guess the only way to address that point is just to say that I think what DICE are trying to do with this game is they're trying to make you value your life a little bit more. You know, and basically, you know, in a nutshell, if you really don't want to spend time in the spawn screen, maybe play the game in such a way that doesn't get you killed as much. And I know that's kind of a rough way to put it, but, you know, that's what DICE are going for. And, you know, maybe try that out and see if that works for you. Play a little bit more passively. Maybe try not to run and gun as much, and you might find that you have a better experience. Now, apparently the next point is from Joe as well, and I'm going to put it in anyway because it's a really good one. He says, I feel like I'm fighting as or against the German Empire, not Nazis. And what he's trying to say here is that there's no usage of the swastika, which I think has something to do with German law. Maybe some of you guys might be able to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that one. I think also German law has changed in the last few months as well to allow people to use the swastika in various works of art, I guess, like Battlefield 5 is. But I think basically, in general, in a nutshell, the thinking around not using the swastika has got to do with the fact that they probably wouldn't be able to sell many or, if any, games in Germany if they did put it in. Okay, so coming in next is a point that I knew was coming, Balthazar Lawson says he wants a spotting mechanic that actually spots the enemy. If you can't see them, you can't kill them. It's currently great for the camping sniper, but annoying for everyone else. The way it is means it's off my shopping list. And that's really sad to hear. I'm sad to hear that you're not going to buy the game because the spotting mechanic's gone, but I can understand why it worries you. Personally, once again, I think you guys know the answer to this. I am a big fan of the fact that the spotting mechanic is gone. I think in previous games, we were shooting at Doritos and not shooting at people, and that's just ridiculous because it's not authentic at all. And number two, you'd fire a shot, you'd kill someone, and then instantly get lit up by the whole enemy team because just before the other guy went down, he was able to spot you, and then, you know, everybody can now see exactly where you are. So this is a really good thing for flanking. It's a really good thing for any sort of stealthy playstyle, and I'm personally really happy that spotting has changed. But with that being said, I can completely understand why some of you guys might be worried that it is gone. All right, so Jacob Admiral James 42 Elam says, and I'm going to cherry pick some of these points because once again, it's a massive tweet. He says, let recons, planes, and tankers 3D spot, which is a good point that a lot of people have been bringing up. Planes and tanks especially, I know people are worried about that you can't spot in them. So maybe DICE might do a backflip on those ones in particular and return to a normal traditional style of spotting just for them. He also says clean up the visual clutter and the UI. That's another point I've heard a lot of people bringing up, and I think that's one that DICE have already started to take on board, and I think it's something we can expect to see changed in the final game. And he also wants attrition to be in a particular game mode. And to also have a classic Battlefield style mode, which is definitely a way to get around it. But the issue is I think they're trying to avoid splitting the community. That was one of the reasons they chose to get rid of the premium pass. They don't want people to be playing two different games. They want people to be all playing on the same servers so that the game has longevity for, you know, the next 2 years. So, I mean, just from my gut feeling, I don't think they're going to do anything like this. But you never know, maybe they might decide to abandon attrition altogether and it might only be part of hardcore mode or something like that, which is obviously the mode that less people play anyway. Okay, so the next point comes from Mavestorm, and this is a really good one. He says, I'd like to be able to communicate with the other squad leaders for a better understanding of what they're trying to do. And honestly, I mean, I think communication is vital in a game like this. And especially if they want to try and make it more of a tactical style shooter that's based on skill rather than an arcade shooter like some of the other games in the franchise have been. So yeah, I'm fully on board with more communication features, obviously the ability to talk to squad leaders, but I'd also like the ability to talk to people around me in the 3D world. So I'm not sure whether they'll add in local VoIP, but you know, that is definitely something I'd like to see. Now, my mate Slab Bulkhead says, I'm really worried that the assault might be an every class, and I'm legit concerned that assault rifles will take over the infantry small arms meta. They should be a perk of a subclass, not a common part of the AT Trooper. And I'm completely with that. I mean, in previous games, we've seen the assault rifles on the assault kit and the AT weapons on a dedicated engineer class. Not sure why they changed that around in Battlefield 1. Obviously, in Battlefield 1, it was a little bit more balanced out because the assault class actually had to deal with the submachine guns, which, you know, have always been less good than the assault rifles or the LMGs. So, yeah, basically, I'm completely with that. Little bit worried that it might, you know, the assault class in particular might take over. But we also haven't seen how archetypes are fully going to work. So, I mean, maybe we just have to wait till launch to see how it's all going to pan out. All right, coming up next, Steven Stodge says, I want a Molotov throw to damage tanks. The Finnish took out heaps of tanks with Molotovs. Tanks in World War II, especially on the engine block, weren't sealed perfectly, so a Molotov on the back could destroy the engine. That's a really interesting thing. I mean, that's obviously something that they don't necessarily have to add. They just have to change. So, I mean, I'll make sure I get that to the DICE devs and, you know, basically let them know that maybe if they would consider it, that a Molotov cocktail might actually do damage to a tank if and only if it landed in the correct spot. So President Slendy says, reveal a competitive mode. And honestly, I think they're probably already ahead of us on that one. I mean, just look at Final Stand. It's definitely got competitive written all over it. And if that in particular is not a competitive mode, obviously the buddy revive system is something that would really help out for any competitive mode in Battlefield 5. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we are going to get some kind of competitive mode in Battlefield 5. So Lucy13 says, a reload animation needs fixing on the M30 shotgun. I know it's nothing huge, but that's one of the more annoying issues. And I mean, I guess I'm going to sort of address this in a little bit of a different way. Obviously, having one particular gun not functioning at launch isn't a huge deal, but I think that just goes down to the polish on the game in general. You know, I think some previous games in the franchise have left players with a bad first impression, and I think it's really on DICE this time around to make sure Battlefield 5 comes out in a state as perfect as it possibly can be in. So I think delaying the game a month is a really good idea, and in fact, I mean, I'd even be happy if they wanted to delay it even further, because I think making sure they get this game out in a good state is way more important than getting it out to a particular schedule. It needs to be perfect, because if it's not, it's just going to be one more dent in a franchise that's already taken quite a few hits in the previous couple of years. And finally, Jake Morgan, the greatest squad member in the world, says, tanks need a buff, in my opinion. Very hard to aim. So obviously he's talking about the turret traverse time, which everyone's been talking about. Personally, I'm not really a tanker, so I mean, I'm happy to let you guys hash that out with DICE. But just from the outside looking in, like I said before, I think the new system is a lot more authentic, and it really does make you think about where you're going to position your tank as well. So, you know, all in all, that's a good point for me, but once again, I can understand why you guys might think it's not so good. But anyway, guys, that just about wraps up this video. So let me know what you think in the comments, and if you like what you see, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, just remember, if you want to keep in touch with me, you can find links to my Twitter and Discord down in the description below. And of course, until next time, see you later, and have a good one.